Today we are taking a look at end of the world secrets as we explore Gnostic prophecies. So we're taking a look at the end of the world, the apocalypse, in the context of this book that was once banned by the church called On the Origin of the World. And On the Origin of the World describes the accounts of creation before the events in the Bible, but it ends with the end of the world. So On the Origin of the World ends with the end of the world appropriately. And that's what we are taking a look at today, the final sections of this once banned book, to see what it has to say about the end of the world. And we're going to see that it's incredible. It has to do with the end and the destruction of darkness, the emergence of light, God destroying himself, the resurgence of the divine feminine. And not only that, but we're going to be taking a look at the idea of prophecy in general. What is a prophecy? What are prophecies? And how does it relate to our understanding of how the world works? So it's going to be good. We have a lot to talk about right now. And before we do, I just want to remind you, please hit like and subscribe so that we can share this information, spread this information, and spread knowledge. That's what we're all about. And when you like and subscribe, it helps get these videos seen. Also, if you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon. It helps out a lot. That's how I'm able to do my work. And you get access to all of our members only videos and a new members only video every single week. So you can become a member on Patreon by going to patreon.com/MorgueOfficial or becoming a member on YouTube on tier 2 or higher. Also, watch out in the comments. There are a lot of people who are scammers that are pretending to be me, saying to join my WhatsApp, join my Telegram. Don't listen to it. Don't fall for the BS. It's not me. Also, there are people and groups out there who don't like what I'm doing and don't like what we're doing. So they're spreading a lot of misinformation and disinformation about me and our group and what we do. So just be smart, use your head, don't fall for the BS. All right, here we go, my friends. Gnostic prophecies and the end of the world secrets. So what are we talking about today? Like I said, we're taking a look at this once banned book called On the Origin of the World that is a Gnostic text. And like I said, it describes the accounts of creation before the events in the Bible, but ends with the end of the world, the apocalypse. And that's what we're talking about today. So like I said, it's this here, and you can read these all for free on gnosis.org. By the way, people always ask me, well, where do you get these? Where do you read them? You can read them on gnosis.org. So these were scriptures that were discovered in 1945, buried near the tombs of Egypt, and they contain scriptures from a group known as Gnostics. Gnostic comes from the word gnosis, which means knowledge, which presents a different interpretation, a different perspective on what Christianity eventually became. And so to just do a quick recap, if you haven't seen the other videos, you don't have to have seen them for them to make sense. So I'm going to do a real quick recap, but if you do find this interesting, check out the playlist. There is a lot to this. This is a very interesting book, and it's been quite a journey and a lot of twists and turns. But in a nutshell, okay? In a nutshell, the Gnostics believe that the true realm, the true reality, is a realm of divine light with beings called eons that populate this realm of divine light. And they believe that the God of the Bible, or what would become the Bible, of course, is an evil being of shadow, not from the realm of divine light, but an evil being of shadow that is fooling humanity into thinking that it is God. The true God, the real God, is just a mind of divine light. And so, according to Gnosticism, the God of the Bible is an archon, or a ruler, whose name is Yaldabaoth. And humans aren't actually material beings, but humans are actually from the realm of divine light. So humans are actually powerful gods. Now, the shadow being, Yaldabaoth, the god of the Bible, was afraid of humans and concocted a plan to trap them into physical bodies, erase their memories, and keep them as basically slaves. And so the story of the Gnostic stories, and this is important for understanding the prophecies of the end of the world and how they all tie together. This is an important backstory for this. So the idea with Gnosticism, essentially, is that we're all trapped, that we're all actually divine beings, and we're all trapped in these material bodies, and even when we die, we'll be trapped again by Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth will continuously trap us in these bodies, so reincarnation is a part of Gnosticism, and the only way to escape is through what they call gnosis, or knowledge. So for Gnostics, transcendence is about knowledge and understanding what one is. Okay, so the goal of Gnosticism is to transcend the material world, the world of darkness created by the evil creator God, and to reach a realm of divine light. And this, of course, now comes into where there's a completely different interpretation of Jesus. So On the Origin of the World starts out with the story of creation. Then where we left off last time, they said, okay, let's forget about creation. Let's talk about where we are in history right now. And so, of course, when this was written, this was a long time ago, but they were talking about how basically Jesus Christ, or the Savior, was a very enlightened being who was gathering awakened minds together. So essentially they were talking about minds that were incarnating, or souls that were incarnating, who were trying to teach humanity what they are, what they were, and who they are, so that they can attain gnosis and realize that they're divine beings. And so we made the parallel to talking about how, well, this is exactly what we are doing right now. We are those individuals who understand what we are, and we are trying to now help humanity understand what they are. So you can see there's a lot of parallels between what we're doing and Gnosticism. Now there's not a one-to-one ratio, there's some big differences, but you can see this intuitive parallel. And so let's start here. We have Jesus the Logos, we have the consummation of the age and the apocalypse, and then we have the light is saved and Gnostics return home. So let's take a look at this. So first, to get the idea of Jesus the Logos. So when they say Jesus the Logos, it says, now the Word, who is more exalted than anyone, was sent forth for this work only. To announce what is unknown. So the role of Christ as the Logos, or the Word, is to, it says, sent for this work only, to announce what is unknown. So you see the big difference already in Gnostic Christianity? Jesus was not sent to die for your sins, but for one purpose only, to announce what is unknown, to be a revealer of knowledge. Logos means word and is often associated with reason and knowledge. And Christ said, there is nothing hidden that will not appear, and what was unknown will be known. Now, these were sent so they might reveal what is hidden and expose the 7 authorities of chaos and their impiety. So the 7 authorities of chaos have to do with Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth and his servants that's what they're referring to when they're talking about the 7 authorities of chaos and their impiety. So Yaldabaoth and his archons, his demons, his consorts that have all been birthed from him are evil beings of darkness and chaos. It says, and they were condemned to be killed. So when all the perfect ones appeared in the fashioned bodies of the rulers, again, so when all the perfect ones appeared in the fashioned bodies of the rulers, this is talking about when all those perfect ones, meaning those who know what they are, that's what it means by perfect, those who understand that they're divine beings, when they were incarnated into bodies, they revealed incomparable truth, and they put to shame every wisdom of the gods. So their wisdom was infinitely more powerful than the evil beings. And when it comes to those evil beings, it says, and their fate was discovered to be condemnable. Their power dried up, their dominion was destroyed, and their forethought and their glory became empty. Okay, so now we're transitioning to the consummation of the age and the apocalypse. So you see, now we're going from sort of contemporary times to the future. So the origin of the world starts out with what happened before creation, then what happened during creation, then it jumps to the time of Christ and what was current for when it was being written at the time. Now it's going to the end of the world. And it says the consummation of the age and the apocalypse. Now, one thing that we have to understand here is, what do we mean by apocalypse? And I've talked about this a lot, but for those who don't know, apocalypse comes from the Greek word apocalypsis, which means unveiling, a revealing. So apocalypse doesn't mean fiery Armageddon, but it can be associated with that. It can be associated with it. But what it means is an unveiling, a revealing, that which was hidden becoming known. So you have a lot of, like, another banned book is called The Apocalypse of Adam, which describes the creation story from Adam's point of view, Adam and Eve's point of view. And then you have the things like the Apocalypse of John. And this doesn't necessarily mean fiery Armageddon. It means an unveiling. So when you talk about the Apocalypse of Adam or the Apocalypse of John, this means there was that something was revealed to John, or John was revealing something. Same thing with Apocalypse of Adam. Either when you have an apocalypse of something, either something is being revealed to someone or that someone is doing revealing. But here we can see that, because we're going to see this is very much associated with a fiery Armageddon as well. As we read a little further, there is a lot of fiery Armageddon type things occurring. But it's important to understand that apocalypse doesn't necessarily mean a fiery Armageddon. It means an unveiling. And that's why we say that, well, we are the apocalypse. And in a very positive sense, though, we are the apocalypse in that we are an unveiling. We are a revealing from what is unknown to what is known. All the roles that Christ and these, perfect ones and these blessed spirits that they talk about here, this is what we are doing right now. This is what we aim to do as being, all of us together collectively are the second coming of Christ, in that we are bringing a Christ consciousness to the world. Every single one of us who is engaged in increasing the consciousness of humanity in a positive direction, and that's very important. It has to be in a positive direction, because some people are very misaligned and misdistorted with their understanding. But those who are involved in a positive force to push humanity to a new level of consciousness, this is the second coming of Christ. The second coming of Christ is a new consciousness on earth. And so an apocalypse is an unveiling. It's a part of that. Now, here's the important thing to understand, though. We are all about creating a new beginning. That's why we're called Neogenians. We want a neogenesis. We want a new beginning for the world, a new beginning, a new humanity, a new consciousness, a new earth. The problem is, of course, is that when something new arises, well, the old falls away. And this is why you're seeing so much of Armageddon-like scenarios happening in the world right now. Why are you seeing so many Armageddon-like scenarios happening in the world right now? Because the old structures that exist literally cannot accommodate the new consciousness that is emerging. It's like having, a computer from the 90s and trying to run a modern game on it, or trying to use an old Nokia phone to browse Instagram. Like, you can't do it. It doesn't support it. It doesn't work. So you have all these old systems today, old systems rooted in religion, whether it's religion or politics or morality or whatever. All these different systems are rooted in an old understanding of existence and an old understanding of reality that's based on pure self-awareness. We are now evolving to a higher stage of all awareness. We're going from self-awareness, humanity is now evolving to all awareness. Now, our goal is to push humanity all the way to hyper-awareness, which is an advanced form of all awareness, but you kind of have like instinctual existence, then you have self-awareness, then you have all awareness, and then you have hyper-awareness as being a higher form of that. Now, the thing to see here is that transcendence incorporates the previous moments within it. When you're self-aware, you still have instinctual behaviors that comes with it. When you become all aware, you're still self-aware. Your self-awareness doesn't go away. It doesn't dissipate or anything like that. You just have a higher point of view that incorporates your old point of view in it as well. But anyway, you have these old systems that are collapsing all around because they cannot accommodate this new consciousness that is emerging right here and right now. And this is why you see so much war and bloodshed and hatred and destruction, because it is this new consciousness that is emerging and the old system cannot account for it. It's foreign to it. It doesn't understand it. It can't grasp it. And so it tries to It tries to stop it. It tries to stifle it, but you can't stop a new consciousness. You can't stop, unless, of course, the world destroys itself, which is a very real possibility, and the one that we're trying to move humanity away from. So there's a couple of different scenarios that can happen here. Let me prophesy for you right now. There are three different scenarios that can happen. Either A, humanity obliterates itself, whether that's through nuclear war or not being able to come together to overcome global catastrophes. That's one option. Another option is that rich elite oligarchs emerge as the rulers of the world and keep humanity sort of in an enslaved kind of state in a oligarchical society. We don't want that either. Or third, we have the option of coming together as a globally united planetary civilization, instituting a teleocratic system where the purpose is to create a higher quality of life for every individual and a collective. We are operating together in a new consciousness, in a new life where we can thrive and live and prosper together as one people. So these are the different options. Which one is it going to be? It's up to you. It's up to us. It will only happen according to the reason why we live in a shithole right now is because humanity has collectively chosen Earth to be a shithole. But if we collectively choose for it to be a beautiful planetary civilization and the establishment of the kingdom of heaven on Earth right now, we can do that as well. But this is why, even though in the midst of destruction and chaos, light can emerge from this. And this is what we're going to talk about right now. So it says, before the consummation of the age, the whole place will be shaken by great thunder. Then the rulers will lament, crying out on account of their death. So the rulers, the gods of the old world, are dying. And you can see, right? So the whole place will be shaken by a great thunder, and the rulers will lament, crying out on account of their death. Shaken by thunder. Old structures are being shaken. Old structures are collapsing, and the rulers, the gods of the old world, we can understand that as being the people who control the world today, or the people who are part of, high organizations that are keeping humanity in an enslaved state. And are part of an old consciousness, an old religious consciousness, or an old mindset. All of the old structures and institutions and religions, all those who are associated with running those or propagating those, are lamenting and crying out on account of their death. And you can see this all over the place. You can listen to traditional family values are being destroyed and no one respects religion anymore, and blah, lamenting and crying out because their systems are collapsing. The angels will mourn for their human beings, and the demons will weep for their times and seasons, and their people will mourn and cry out on account of their death. Then the age will begin, and they will be disturbed. Their kings will be drunk from the flaming sword and will make war against one another, so that the earth will be drunk from the blood that is poured out. So, of course, again, just talking about the immense chaos and turmoil and destruction that is occurring. And a couple things that I want to say here is, of course, this is a very negative and fearful sort of point of view, but we have to understand that this is a step in the process. This is what's going to occur when a new consciousness starts to emerge. And it says here, let's see, and the seas will be troubled by that war. Then the sun will darken and the moon will lose its light. The stars of the heaven will disregard their course, and great thunder will come out of the great power that is above all the powers of chaos. So so when talking about these ideas, like the sun darkening and the moon losing its light, I'm trying to, because I want to talk to you guys about the nature of prophecy, like what prophecy is. But I want to see when I want to All right, let's talk about that now, because we're going to talk about the resurgence of the divine feminine in just a moment, which is important. So let's talk a little bit about prophecy before we continue with this, so we can have a better grasp and understanding for what's going on here. So what is prophecy? What is it about? You hear about prophecies all the time. There's prophecies in the Bible. There's Gnostic prophecies. There's Nostradamus. There's a lot of people prophesying. So what is it? Is it real? Is it false? Is it a bunch of bullshit? Or what's going on? So what prophesying is really just individuals who are highly intuitive, tapping into archetypal patterns of reality, and then giving forth proclamations on the future based on those archetypal patterns that they have tapped into. So here's the thing when it comes to that. So basically, are prophecies true or not? Will they come true or not? Like most things in life, it's more complicated than that. It's a lot more complicated than that. It's kind of like saying, let's say there's a basketball hoop in front of me and I have a basketball. It's like, is that, and I'm going to throw the ball. Am I going to make the hoop or not? I'm bad at basketball, so probably not. But let's imagine that I were actually good at basketball. Maybe, possibly. It depends on a number of factors. It depends on a number of things. But you can see how if one is like saying, trying to make a basket, one can sort of, I'm trying to give an analogy of predicting the future here. You can predict the future. You can go, oh, this ball is going to go through that basketball hoop. Now, that is a prediction of a future event. And that prediction of the future event has a possibility of being true. Now, how come I know that? I know that possibility of being true because I know how to play basketball. I know how to, arc my hand at a certain angle and apply a certain pressure to it and account for air resistance, et cetera, et cetera. So based on my understanding of reality, which is how gravity works and what kind of force to apply to the ball, because I know all of these conditions, I can make a pretty good prediction for where the ball's going to go. Even if it doesn't make the hoop, it didn't go behind me, didn't go left, it didn't go right. There's all these options that the ball could take, but I said the ball's going to go that way and in that hoop. Maybe it will go in the hoop, maybe it'll get close to the hoop, but at least it's going to get kind of close. It's not going in any of these other directions. Now you might think, okay, well, yeah, that's obvious. I mean, you're just talking about physics. You're just trying to make a basketball. But my point is that prophecy is kind of like that, but different. We're going to talk about why it's different. It's kind of like that on one level, where it has to do with a highly intuitive individual from the standpoint of where they are, having, based on the intuitive archetypal patterns that they are tapped into, getting a feel for how the future could unfold. So just like you can get a feel for how the future will unfold when you shoot a basketball, because you're familiar with the physical systems that are involved in force and pressure and all that, someone who is highly intuitive and tapped into the archetypal realm of existence can get a possible trajectory based on similar principles, except you're projecting, 50 to 100 to 1,000 or more years into the future rather than just a few seconds. And it's not based on physical processes, but rather understanding the mental architecture or being connected to the mental architecture of existence. Okay, so let's expand on that a little more, unpack it a little bit more. So prophecy is similar to this, understanding the conditions and being tapped into the archetypal pattern of existence. So first of all, let's understand that like one can say that they're going to make a basketball, but don't. First of all, prophecies may not come true. Just because something is prophesied doesn't mean it's going to come true. You can be a real shit, prophet. And so you're not going to make any hoops. So just because someone is prophesying something doesn't mean it's going to come true. Second of all, and this is key, it is archetypal. So when you have people who are making prophecies, they are basing it on an archetypal structure of existence, meaning that it's symbolic. So when you're tapped into the intuitive, holistic, archetypal domain of reality, it communicates in symbols and stories and metaphors. So this is a big problem, is a lot of people will take prophecies to be literal when prophecies are symbolic and archetypal and have to do with metaphor and analogy. So when one is looking at prophecies, one also has to remember, first of all, it might not come true, might just be wrong. And second of all, it's likely highly symbolic. It's likely highly based on archetypal patterns. So, for example, when we talk about things like the sun will darken and the moon will lose its light, that is very likely being based on archetypal patterns. And depending on the context, that can mean many different things. Sun has to do with knowledge, and the light of the sun is often associated with that. So because of this world is in turmoil and destruction, because all of the old systems are decaying and falling away, this darkening of the sun and the moon doesn't literally mean the sun and the moon are going to be shut off, but rather that the light of the sun will be shut off, but rather that humanity is entering into an age of darkness, of destruction and darkness. So that's also very important to understand and critical, because especially in New Age communities and spiritual communities, people associate archetypal symbolic premonitions or intuitions as literal when they are not literally true. So first of all, I want to say that, all right, so important things to remember. One, prophecy might not come true. Second of all, if it is in the realm of truth, it's likely highly archetypal and symbolic. And also, very important one, prophecy is very, 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 very unlikely able to prophesy like specific events, because it's based on archetypal patterns, which means it's based on overarching themes, overarching patterns. So, for example, one can know and have an intuition of an old world collapsing and the emergence of a new consciousness, because that's part and parcel of how the world operates. If you understand how existence operates, even on an intuitive level, that's part of the structure. That's embedded within you. Embedded within each and every single one of us is a knowledge of how the world and the universe works. That's why Plato said that all learning is actually remembering. That's not literally true, but it's kind of a cool way to think about it. In a certain way, it is, because it's all hidden within us. So in a certain way, that is true. I don't want to get into all the details there, because that would be a whole video on itself. But the details of reality are embedded within us. Why? Well, because we are all instances of reality. Each one of us is an individual eternal mind, a Zedic mind, a Zeta. And so we are all instances of existence. So we have the DNA or the pattern of reality within us. And so we all have this inherent understanding and idea of how reality is going to unfold on a big picture level, in the necessary patterns that reality takes for its completion, not the specific contingent or particular details, but the big overarching themes and patterns are embedded within every single one of us. So that's another thing when it comes to this idea of prophesying, is that it's going to be based on big overarching themes rather than little tiny specific details. You're not going to be able to tell you the name of some person that's going to appear, or something like that. It's overarching patterns that have to do with the structure of reality. So these important things to understand, once again, might not be true. If it is, likely to be highly symbolic and archetypal, dealing with the overarching patterns of existence. So prophesying or predicting the future, when understood in this way, isn't kind of like any sort of woo-woo or magic sort of thing. It's tapping into the foundational layer of existence and realizing that reality unfolds in a certain way, and then that becomes interpreted in symbolic ways. But one has to be very, very careful, because this is a very dangerous area, because people can take prophecies as being literally true and treat prophets like gods and all this crazy stuff. So we always want to be based in logic and reason. So if anyone is going around saying, hey, such and such is going to occur, we want to examine it with logic and reason. And if it's something logical and rational, then we can see, okay, this makes sense. Let's think about it. But if it's something just completely off the wall and doesn't mesh with reason, then you shouldn't make any big decisions based on it. Basically what I mean. If someone is saying that a certain thing is going to happen, and it checks out with logic and reason, like, oh, hey, this is a real possibility, then perhaps look into it, prepare for it, see what's going on, examine it. But if it doesn't check out with logic and reason, no big decision should be made based on it. Then it's clearly like, all right, well, we have no way of knowing if this is true or not. We don't know, because archetypal symbolism is very intricate and very complex, and you can't always be accurate with how you, it's like interpreting a dream. So it's always very important to realize that we must base our decisions and understanding of reality based on logic and reason. We can have these intuitive and archetypal connections, absolutely, but we have to make sure that we examine them as well. And that's our point in meta-rationalism. In our system of meta-rationalism, it's all about understanding the metaphysical rationally, which means, hey, we can be tapped into it. We can be tapped into the metaphysical, but we have to examine it with reason as well, so that we know that we're not starting crazy religions or believing wild ideas. We want to be grounded in reason while being tapped into the metaphysical. And this is the key to mesh these two aspects of reality together, because everything else is one or the other. Science is pseudo-rational, but completely disconnected from the spiritual metaphysical. And then the spiritual and metaphysical people or systems or groups are usually intuitively connected, but are completely divorced from logic and reason and mathematics and things like that. And so you start to get off into very crazy territories because you aren't structured in a way that one should be. So anyway, I wanted to just point that out real quick, that when we're talking about prophecy here, we're talking about the overarching patterns of reality unfolding, and but the specific events are likely highly archetypal. So this is why you can have Gnostic prophecies that are coming true, so to speak, in a symbolic and metaphorical way, because they're talking about a pattern of existence that unfolds in a certain, just like the Gnostics, believed. So good case in point, right? The Gnostics believing that we are souls, eternal souls, trapped into this world by an evil creator god and their archons. Is that literally true? No, but it gets pretty close in the idea that we are divine energetic beings that are currently linked to material forms, but they got, some of the details that were symbolic, and I know that probably a lot of Gnostics knew they were symbolic, but there's people who take this literally, and the people who take it literally, that's not what it's really about. The archons can represent structures in society that need to be overcome, but more specifically in Gnosticism, archons represented structures of the mind, of the psyche, that had to be overcome, with different archons representing things like ignorance or wrath, or Yaldabaoth has been interpreted as either being the shadow self or even the ego self. So it depends on how one interprets it. But my point is you can get to these overarching themes of existence, but one has to be very, very careful, because these archetypal themes are symbolic. That's key to remember. So don't take them literally, please, for the love of all that is good and godly. Because it gets pretty crazy with some things that people start believing here. So we have this idea of this world in a great thunder and being shaken, old systems decaying, the rulers are lamenting and crying out on their because of their death. Kings are causing war with each other. The sun and the moon darken. But now here's a cool part, right? So the stars of the heaven will disregard their course, and a great thunder will come out of the power that is above all the powers of chaos. So this is really cool. So you're having this is where things start to, the beginning of a positive turn, I guess you could say. I mean, this is a positive turn because the old structures are dying and the rulers are crying out because they're dying, but you're having blood and war and death and destruction as well. So, but here's the cool part. So the stars of the heaven will disregard their course, and great thunder will come out of great power that is above all the powers of chaos. So this is a power coming from the realm of light that is higher than these dark beings of shadow, which remember is the God of the Bible and all his angels and demons. So a great power comes forth out of a thunder from the realm of light. The place where the firmament of woman is situated. This is really cool here. So when she has created the first work, she will take off her wise flame of afterthought and will put on irrational wrath. Then she will drive out the gods of chaos, whom she had created together with the chief creator. She will cast them down to the abyss, and they will be wiped out by their own injustice. So this is the cool thing here. Is that I'm looking at the time. I don't have enough time to get into the whole idea of Gnosticism and who Sophia is and what she has to do with the creation of the creators. But what's really being seen here is this feminine power, that is taking off the wise flame of afterthought and putting on irrational wrath to drive out the gods of chaos, which I think is just very, very cool and an archetypal resonance of the resurgence of the divine feminine and feminine power driving out the patriarchal structures of the world. So do you see how these are archetypal patterns that are being tapped into that's coming out in a symbolic way? Like, this feminine angel taking off her veil of afterthought and having a flame of wisdom, of wrath, irrational wrath, and drive out the gods of chaos. We can see this as, the normal or one what would usually think of, a nurturing feminine energy becoming oppressed for thousands of years, resurging, stepping into their power, bringing forth wrath, driving out patriarchal structures or the gods of chaos, which is so cool. I love that. Great. Awesome. Fantastic. So, they will be wiped out by their own injustice, for they will become like the mountains that blaze out fire, and they will consume one another until they are destroyed by their chief creator. So now you have this idea that they're going to be destroyed by their own injustice, for they will consume one another. So they're fighting and consuming each other until finally they're destroyed by their chief creator. And I think you can see this as well when you have these old structures that begin to even fight amongst themselves and begin to fight each other. And you can see, because clearly those of us who are of a higher consciousness, who truly aren't fighting with each other. Of course, you have a lot of pseudo spiritual people who fight with each other all the time for the most ridiculous of reasons. But when you really are on, when you truly have all awareness, when you are with others who are also of all awareness, you are not fighting amongst each other, because you realize to hurt another would be to hurt yourself. For those with all awareness to go to war with one another would be like, a hammer smashing its own hand, taking a hammer and smashing your own hand. It's dumb. And if someone does that, then they have a very malformed a very malformed structure of the psyche that's resulting in a misunderstanding of what reality is and how it operates. That's a whole nother topic. But the idea here is that now you have these rulers of darkness. Everything is falling away. Everything is being destroyed, and they're turning on each other. And you can see this clearly in the world, where you have hateful organizations that are fighting amongst each other, and it's clear as day that this occurs in the world all the time. So, and finally, they will be destroyed by their chief creator. When he destroys them, he will turn against himself and destroy himself until he ceases to be. That old consciousness, the old ways of thinking, the old ideas, the old limiting systems will all collapse and fall away and destroy each other. And their heavens will fall upon one another, and their powers will burn. You can see this idea of their heavens and their powers. So it's all their power, all their forces, all the structures, all the institutions, all the societies that have been in groups and structures and power systems that have been formed by these old selfish ways of thinking and backwards ways of thinking will be destroyed. Their realms will be overthrown, and their chief creator's heaven will fall and split in two. Likewise, his stars in their sphere will fall down to the earth, and the earth will not be able to support them. They will fall down to the abyss, and the abyss will be overthrown. So very chaotic, destruction, chaos. And then we have the light is saved, and the Gnostics return home. It says here, the light will cover the darkness and obliterate it. So here, through all this chaos and destruction and darkness and thundering of heavens and the breaking of stars and the splitting of realms, you have a light that comes, and this light will cover the darkness and obliterate it. It will become like something that never existed. And see, this is beautiful. When you think about it, when we build a new world and humanity achieves all awareness and starts to move towards hyper awareness, and we build a teleocratic civilization, people will look back at what's happening today, and it will be unimaginable that people could have treated each other like this. It's unimaginable for me. I have a very hard time grasping the idea that people can treat each other so horribly. Like, honestly, it's beyond me how we can have the technology that we do, where we have smartphones and I can be communicating with you through all this advanced technology, yet human beings are still treating each other in ways that are so deplorable, it's hard to imagine. It's beyond me that humans are so stuck in this state of hatred and destruction of each other. It's high time that we move to a new phase of consciousness. Humanity has had enough time. It's time to get there now. Everything is in place for it to emerge. A very large, powerful aspect of how this is going to emerge is because of the interconnectivity of technology and social media, because it allows us to understand our connectivity. There's this certain effect, I forget what it's called, I've talked about it before, but there's this effect that astronauts have when they're in space and they observe the Earth. There's a name for the effect. I can't remember what it's called, but when they observe the Earth from space, they realize that everything is connected, and they describe it as a profound shift in consciousness. And one of the let me see if I can actually look this up. Let's see. The overview effect is a cognitive shift reported by astronauts while viewing the Earth from space. Researchers have characterized the effect as a state of awe with self-transcendent qualities precipitated by a particular striking visual stimulus. So I'm trying to see, there's a quote that I want to read here. Oh, man. I'm not going to be able to find it most likely. Let me see. When you look at the Earth from space, you realize that our planet is a beautiful interconnected system. We are all in this together. Seeing Earth from space was a powerful experience that made me feel connected to all living things on our planet. We must work together to protect our home. I don't know. I'm just Googling this real quick. I don't know who said that or what that's related to. But you find a lot of quotes that are very, very similar to that from people who have seen Earth from space. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because while that's not happening to all of us by literally being in space, our interconnectedness of social media can have a similar effect when we're seeing the world through the eyes of others. And that's why I always say that the smartphone is the evolution of a new organ. This is a new organ. This is an organ of the absolute. It's an organ for a new consciousness. It gives us the eyes and the ears of the absolute or the collective consciousness. We can see through another's eyes. Again, not literally, but through live streams and social media. We can get all these different perspectives all over the place. We can connect to a cloud consciousness and access all kinds of data that we want. Now, of course, this is kind of metaphorical, but it converges upon being very, very true. I mean, it is an externalized organ that allows us to have a collective experience. And so this collective experience, when we see terrible things happening in the world, think about 60 years ago or whatever, if something terrible happened in the world, well, maybe you'd hear about it in the newspaper a couple days later with some really grainy black and white photo and some biased news article. It seems like something that's not really happening, that's distant, that's a story, that is a fiction happening in another world. But when you see it almost in real time right before your eyes, and you see the horror and the atrocities happening all over the world, and you realize, wow, like this is actually happening, this is real, and these people are just like me and you. Like you look at some of these people that have had terrible things happen to them and they're no longer alive, and you can go look at their Instagrams and be like, wow, this was a person just like me, just like you. And this creates a sense of interconnectedness and realizing that we're all in this together. And so this helps birth a new consciousness, is that this is what starts to form that structure in the psyche, the analog all, that one begins to understand and realize that we're all interconnected and need to be working together as one people. So the light will cover the darkness and obliterate it. It will become like something that has never existed. And the source of the darkness will be dissolved. The deficiency will be plucked out at its root and thrown down into the darkness, and the light will withdraw up to its roots, and the glory of the unconceived will appear, and it will fill all the eternal realms when the prophetic utterances and writings of those who are rulers are revealed and fulfilled by those who are called perfect. So again, now for the Gnostics, of course, this is also the literal obliteration of the material world and transcending into the realm of light. Now, of course, we want to be able to fix this world and transform this world. Eventually, will we evolve to a point where we can transcend physical reality? Yes, but that's not the phase we're in right now. There are three phases: survival, planetary civilization, and holos independence. That transcendent phase, that's phase 3. We're still stuck in phase 1 trying to get to phase 2. You can't skip phases here, okay? Phase 2 is where we learn to work together as a unified system and begin to form an interconnected network consciousness. So that's where we start to form in phase 2. Phase 3, holos independence, is when we have evolved to such a degree, such a high level of consciousness and synthesis and synergy and technology and knowledge, and a state that's beyond what we can imagine right now. When we are at that level, we will be able to transcend the physical altogether as a collective and establish what we in the Neogenian system call a CFD, or collective frequency domain, in which we will be able to construct our own universe, so to speak, built from our frequencies. So we'll be able to establish our own realm disconnected from this realm. At least disconnected from it, not completely, but disconnected from it in that we will have zero physical dependency upon it. It will be its own system. Now, so it's important to realize that whereas Gnostics are talking about the literal obliteration of the material world. This is not what we stand for. We stand for a reshaping and a transformation of the world, which is reflected in a lot more accurately in another Gnostic gospel, a different kind of Gnosticism called the Gospel of Thomas. And in the Gospel of Thomas, this is where it talks about how the kingdom of God is within you and all around you, and you just need to see it and make it be, etc. So this is our position, is that the world is ours to construct and transform. So when we see terrible things happening to terrible people, what do we need to do? Hey, we need to change the world and make it a better place. Not go, oh, wow, the world really sucks. I can't wait till I get to go to heaven and escape this sinful place. Or, oh, wow, that really sucks. I can't wait till when I can transcend and become an ascended master. I'm not going to, this is my last incarnation. I can't wait to escape the cycle of incarnation. I can't wait to escape samsara. I can't wait to reach nirvana. I can't wait to blah, blah, blah. No, see, as long as people keep doing that, the world's not going to get better, and it's just going to be a terrible place, and you're going to keep incarnating here again and again, because now is not the time to make that transcendent moment. That comes later in the third phase. So we need to get out of this idea of what Nietzsche called a Hinterwelt, or other world. And we do understand that there is a primary reality, but this reality is an extension of that primary reality, and is a place for us to learn, grow, understand, create, and transform, and build our kingdom here and now. We start here, we start now. Literally, now. We are starting now. And we are starting now through having a collective of conscious individuals come together with the idea of a new world, and then making it be, creating it, manifesting it through our will, forming it. Now, so the light will withdraw up to its roots, and the glory of the unconceived will appear, and it will fill all the eternal realms when the prophetic utterances and the writings of those who are rulers are revealed, and fulfilled by those who are called perfect. Those who were not perfected in the unconceived Father will receive their glories in their realms and in the kingdoms of immortals, but they will never enter the kingless realm. Okay, so this is an interesting idea. There's these different levels, and then you have people who are the perfect ones, and then like the imperfect ones, and they're basically saying the perfect ones are those who understand what they are, that have a full conscious understanding that they're divine beings and they're eternal, and the imperfect ones are those who don't get that. So they're basically saying those who are imperfect will still receive their glories in their realms and in the kingdoms of immortals. They're still going to be in glorious realms, kingdoms of immortals, etc., but they will never enter the kingless realm. And we talked a little bit about this last time. And it says, for it is necessary that everyone will enter the place from which he has come, each one by his deeds, and his gnosis will reveal his nature. But anyway, let me just talk about this kingless realm. The kingless realm is the highest realm and reserved for the perfect ones, where the imperfect ones will still be in the realms of the immortals, etc., but it won't be a kingless realm. And so why is this? Well, it's because when you are one of the perfect ones, you realize what you are. When you realize what you are, you realize that we are all reflections of each other, and that we are all instantiations of the absolute. And so that essentially we realize that we are all God, and we realize in that sense we are all kings. And when we are all kings, guess what? It's a kingless realm in that sense, because if everyone's a king, well, then no one's a king, because a king is one who rules over others. So if everyone is the king of themselves, by realizing that they're God, well, then you're in a kingless realm. And so this is why the highest realm is the kingless realm, because there's no ruler, because you realize that, oh, hey, we're all at that point, right? This is like a fully actualized point, that there is no overarching ruler. So now the Gnostic idea here, remember that in its specifics is not true. There aren't literally beings of darkness that are trapping us here, and then the Armageddon's going to happen, and Sophia's going to come down and with her fiery wrath and drive them out, and they're going to eat each other, and then the world will be destroyed, and we'll all exist in a realm of light. These are all archetypal patterns that the Gnostics were tapping into, translated in symbolic form. So all those specifics, no. But the idea of a world transformation through old structures falling away and the emergence of a new light through knowledge, that is an overarching pattern that is being transmitted. Now, of course, also one has to realize, look, so first of all, remember, it's symbolic and it's an overarching pattern, not detailed. And then also, well, is it going to come true or not? Well, see, we remember, I told you there's 3 ways it could go. It could go that humanity destroys itself. Nuclear war. Not coming together to overcome global catastrophes, cataclysms. No, guess we have to start over then. Or oligarchs rise and create a slave framework. Or the third phase, or third possibility, rather, where we actually do come together under a new consciousness, spread this information, have humanity reach a new consciousness, and together collectively create a teleocratic planetary civilization so that we can have a higher quality of life and the highest quality of life for every individual and the collective. A purposeful world, a meaningful world. And this is what's important to understand about Armageddon, apocalypse, the end of the world, is that the end is always an opportunity for the birth of a new beginning. And that's what we're all about as Neogenians. We want a neogenesis, a new beginning, and we are that new beginning. Like I said, it's not something in the future. It's something that we are creating right here, right now, through coming together as a group with the goal of increasing the consciousness of humanity. Because that's the first step to creating a new world, is to have that new consciousness, because the new world cannot be created with an old consciousness. It literally cannot. A new consciousness is required for a new world right now. This is why spreading information, spreading knowledge, spreading wisdom is key. That is the end of On the Origin of the World. It ends with the end of the world. If you enjoyed that, check out the whole playlist on this video. I have a lot more videos on other Gnostic texts as well. We're going to start probably a new Gnostic text, or we might even start the Revolt of the Angels. We'll see. We'll see. So keep an eye out for that. And as always, please like and subscribe so we can spread this information and how the algorithms spread this around. If you join my work, consider supporting on Patreon. Get access to our members-only videos, new members-only video every single week. It helps out a lot. That's how I'm able to make a living. But remember, never feel pressured to support monetarily. You don't have to. Plenty of free ways you can support, like liking and subscribing. I want to shout out to everyone who does support, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Enki, Nusalina, Paul Rogers III, Eric Fire, Massam, Christopher Smith, and everyone else. Thank you very much.